The ship came down screaming, and I was the only one stupid enough to run toward it. Alarms tore through the mining outpost behind me. Red lights spun across the rock walls. Somewhere on the comm channel, a voice kept repeating that everyone must stay inside and lock the doors, that an unidentified vessel had breached the outer marker and crashed 2 kilometers past the ridge. I was already outside. I was already running. My name is Callum Ashworth, and I was the outpost medic, which meant when something bled, they called me, and something was bleeding now. I could see the smoke rising over the ridge like a black finger pointing at the sky. I should have turned back. Every rule I had ever been trained on told me to turn back. Instead, I climbed the ridge with my medkit bouncing against my hip, and I looked down into the ravine, and I saw the wreck. It was not a human ship. The hull was curved like a shell, silver gray, split open along one side where it had torn through rock. Steam hissed from a dozen cracks, and underneath all that twisted metal, I heard something crying. Not screaming, crying. A small, broken sound, like someone who has already given up on being rescued. I slid down the loose stone, cutting my palm open on the way, and I did not care. I reached the wreck and found a gap wide enough to crawl through, and inside, curled against a shattered console, was her. She was not human, but she was close enough to break my heart anyway. Tall, even folded up the way she was, with skin like dark polished bark and eyes that caught the emergency lighting and threw it back gold. Fine ridges ran along her cheekbones down to her jaw, delicate as carved wood. A thin crest, like a fin, lay flat along the back of her skull. She wore a uniform of deep blue and silver, torn at the shoulder, and beneath the tear I could see silver blood, not red, leaking slow and steady. She looked at me and flinched, raising one shaking hand as if to ward me off. I set the medkit down slowly, showed her my empty hands, and knelt. "I'm not going to hurt you," I said, though I had no idea if she understood a single word. A small device clipped to her collar crackled and hummed, and her voice came through it, rough and translated a half-second behind her lips moving. "You came," she said. "No one else came." "I heard you," I said. "That's all." I got to work. Whatever her biology was, blood loss looked the same in any language, and hers was slowing. I pressed a compress against the wound in her shoulder, and she gasped, grabbing my wrist with surprising strength for someone so weak. "Wait," she said. "Please, before anything else. I must ask you something, and there is very little time." "You're not dying tonight," I told her, more confidence in my voice than I actually felt. "You do not understand," she said, and her golden eyes filled with something between fear and desperation. "My people believe that if I die unbonded, alone, with no hand held in mine, then I do not rest. I wander. Forever. I have seen it happen to others of my kind, out in the deep dark, dying without anyone beside them. I do not want that. I am afraid of that more than I am afraid of dying." "You're not going to die," I said again, working faster now, but she shook her head. "Please," she said, and her voice cracked. "I am asking you. Give me your hand. Just your hand. Let me not be alone in this." I looked at her face, at the fear written plainly across features that were nothing like mine and yet somehow completely readable, and I did the only thing that made sense to me in that moment. I set down the compress, and I took her hand in mine. Her fingers were long, cool, trembling. The moment our palms met, something happened that I was not prepared for. A faint blue light traced up along the ridges on her arm, spreading from where our hands touched, pulsing in rhythm with a sound I only then realized was my own heartbeat, echoed back at me from somewhere inside her. Warmth spread up my arm, gentle, strange, and not unpleasant. Her breathing steadied, the silver blood slowed to a trickle. Color, if you could call it that, returned to her cheeks. "What was that?" I asked. She stared at our joined hands as though she too was seeing this for the first time. "I did not expect it to answer," she whispered. "I did not think it still could." Before I could ask what she meant, the sky above the ravine lit up white, and the sound of heavy engines rolled over the ridge like thunder. I did not let go of her hand. I want that understood. Even as the light grew brighter and the wind from descending ships flattened the dust around us, I did not let go, because she gripped mine like it was the only solid thing left in her world, and something in me refused to be the one who pulled away first. 4 ships landed in the ravine, human military transports, engines roaring, dust and gravel kicked into a storm. Armored figures poured out, weapons raised, shouting orders I could barely hear over the noise. A woman in a commander's uniform pushed through the front line, and when she saw us, when she saw our hands joined together and the fading blue light still tracing along the alien's arm, her face went the color of ash. "Get him away from her," the commander shouted, though nobody moved, because the same blue light that had spread up the alien's arm had, I now noticed, spread faintly along mine as well. "She's hurt," I said, my voice sounding small against the chaos. "I'm a medic. I was helping her." "You have no idea what you've done," the commander said, stepping closer, staring at our hands like they were a lit fuse. "Do you have any idea who that is?" I looked down at the alien woman still gripping my hand, still watching me with those gold eyes, and for the first time I noticed the fine circlet resting against her brow, half hidden beneath torn fabric, etched with symbols that looked less like decoration and more like a crown. "She told me her name was Veska," I said. "That is her name," the commander said. "It is also the name carried by the sovereign matriarch of the Veltari hegemony. Her people have been at war footing with ours for 10 years. And you," she said, pointing at our hands, "just performed a bonding rite reserved for the consort of their throne." The words did not make sense to me at first. I looked at Veska, waiting for her to laugh, to say this was a misunderstanding, that the commander was wrong. Instead, she lowered her eyes, and something like shame crossed her face. "I did not lie to you," she said quietly. "I was afraid, and I was dying, and I asked for a hand to hold so my soul would not wander. I did not think it would work. I did not think a human could answer the bond. I am sorry. I used you without meaning to." "Used me how?" I asked, though a cold weight was already settling in my stomach. "The bond is real," she said. "It is not just comfort. It is recognition. Among my people, a hand offered freely to a dying sovereign, and accepted by her, becomes a marriage of the throne. You are now seen, by law older than either of our nations, as my bonded consort." I stood there in the dust and the noise and the flashing lights, holding hands with a queen I had known for less than 10 minutes, and I understood, slowly, that my life had just changed in a way I could never undo. They took us both to the outpost's command center. Veska was treated properly this time, her wounds sealed with technology her own people brought down from orbit once contact was confirmed and, apparently, once the bond was verified through some kind of resonance scan that lit up both our arms with matching frequencies. I sat outside a sealed medical bay for 6 hours while people in uniforms argued in rooms I was not allowed into, and nobody would tell me anything except that I was to remain on site, under guard, for my own protection. When they finally let me see her again, she was standing, dressed in a fresh uniform, the circlet on her brow no longer hidden. She looked like exactly what she was, a queen, and I looked like exactly what I was, a tired man with a bandaged hand and dust still in his hair. "They will want to end this," she said without preamble. "Your leaders will see me as a weapon to hold against my people. My court will see you as a stain on the throne, a human trick to weaken the bloodline. There are already voices among my own council calling the bond false, calling for it to be broken by force if necessary. I do not think you understand the danger you have stepped into." "Explain it to me," I said. "My ship was ambushed," she said, "not by your people, by members of my own court who do not wish to see me continue to rule. They wanted me dead in a way that looked like accident, out here on the edge of nowhere, far from witnesses. If I return home bonded to a human, some will call it madness. Others will call it treason. All of them will see it as an opportunity to move against me, using you as the reason. So release me," I said, testing the words even as they left my mouth, watching her face for what they would do to her. "Say it was an error. Say the resonance can be undone." Her eyes met mine, steady now, the fear from the ravine replaced with something quieter and heavier. "It can be undone," she said. "There is a right for that as well. I would understand if you asked for it. I took your hand while dying and afraid, and I did not warn you what it might cost you. You owe me nothing. You are free to walk away from all of this tonight, and I will make certain no harm follows you for it." I thought about it. I want to be honest and say that I did think about it, standing there with my whole ordinary life still technically within reach. The mining outpost, my quiet work, my quiet name that nobody outside this rock had ever heard of. Then I thought about her hand shaking in mine in the wreckage, when she believed no one was coming for her, when she asked a stranger not to let her be alone in the dark. "I'm not asking for the right," I said. She went very still. "You understand what you are choosing. I understand that you were dying and scared, and you asked for a hand, not a crown," I said. "I understand that people who want to hurt you are going to use me as an excuse either way, whether I stay or whether I run, so I'd rather stay and make it harder for them." Something shifted in her expression, something that had been braced for disappointment and instead met the opposite. 3 days later, I stood beside her in a chamber aboard a Veltari flagship, facing a court full of golden eyes that did not want me there, facing counselors who called the bond a human trick to my face, in a language their own translators rendered into blunt, cold standard. Veska stood tall beside me, her hand in mine, the same faint blue light tracing along both our arms, steady now instead of desperate. The bond was formed freely, she told her court, her voice carrying without needing to be raised. It was tested. It answered. Any who question it may challenge it through the old rite, in the old way, but they will not challenge it through poison in the dark or blades in the corridor again. I did not survive that ambush by luck. I survived it because a stranger from a world you call an enemy chose to kneel beside me when he owed me nothing. The chamber was silent. I felt every eye in the room measuring me, weighing me, deciding whether I was a mistake to be corrected or a fact to be accepted. I did not look away from any of them. I held Veska's hand, and I let them see that I was not letting go. Anyone who wants her throne, I said, and my voice did not shake, though my heart was pounding hard enough that I was sure she could feel it through our joined hands, goes through her bonded first. Nobody in that chamber moved to test the claim that day. Whether they would try later, I could not say. But for the first time since the ship had screamed out of the sky and into my ordinary life, Veska's hand in mine felt less like a rescue I had performed for a dying stranger, and more like a promise I intended to keep for a very long time.